you can try and kick that addiction gremlin out of your boat along the little river that you're rowing down, but you're never going to do it. So that little gremlin, you're going to kick him out of the boat and he's going to jump right back in. I said, so your only job is to love that little gremlin and to tell him to sit there and to give him a lollipop and say, I hear you, buddy, but I'm not listening to you. You can kick and scream all you want, but I'm in charge here. I'm rowing the boat.
That was my guest this week, Rachel of Recovery by Rachel. I'm your host, MartinJon, and this is the Recover Yourself podcast, where we're talking with people who have long-term recovery about what it is they're recovering to, beyond their journey of recovering from. I've always expressed that neither trauma nor substance abuse is a prerequisite for recovery. It's actually too bad that there's so many stigmas attached to recovery that millions of people just dismiss the idea they need help at all. Recovery is something for everyone, and it was a delight for Rachel and I to address that in this episode. Rachel has a long history of recovery in her life and is focused, as I am, on the journey of recovering the self. Stick around to the end to learn how to get a free copy of her Awakening the Spirit guided meditation and how to join her in a group event for inner child recovery. So absolutely. I am so excited to talk to you today about all of this. What's your history? How did you come to work within recovery as you are currently working with it?
It's an interesting story, actually. I opened a spiritual fitness and wellness studio in San Clemente, California, and it was intended to be a meditation studio. So I had a schedule set up with meditation classes. I had friends in the yoga community, and one day I was sitting at my desk, which faced the front door, and there were these stairs that went upstairs. And there was a recovery center in the building. And I think about 20 young people, a little bit younger than me, 20 millennials, let's say, walked by the front glass door as I'm staring out with, noise and heavy feet and vaping and the whole thing. And they walked up the stairs to go to the office space directly above me. And it was noisy and they were heavy-footed. And I sat there in tears and I said to my higher power, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be a meditation studio and there's all this noise upstairs. What the heck? This can't be. I mean, you told me build it and they will come. So I built it and now I have all this noise above me. I don't understand, how is this going to work? And it's an older building and the walls and the floors were paper thin. I mean, you could hear everything. I could hear them putting their chairs on the floors as they unstacked the chairs, for their circle time. And I just sat there and I said to my higher power, what do you want me to do? And my higher power said to me, if you can't beat them, join them. And I said, okay. And I got on my computer and I wrote a 9-page proposal and I walked over to the recovery center and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'd like to create a spiritual fitness class for you guys. Come over, I'll do a free class for you. So they sent over 22 people and my class was a 90-minute class. And I practiced sound healing. I play the crystal bowls, hands-on healing, energy healing. I did a guided meditation, like story meditation, a little bit of coaching, teaching, and integration at the end. Well, of course, they absolutely loved it. So, which was wonderful. And so it kind of built from there. And then I think a few months later, a second recovery center moved into the building. So I was busy and I started building my coaching practice. I was teaching 4 classes a week at one point and seeing I think at one point when I was super busy, I was blessed enough and busy enough to probably work with between 45 and 65 clients a week. So I was working with people at the detox level this whole way through who were in recovery. And then my private coaching practice was working with people in substance abuse recovery, but also recovering from anything else. So working with and facilitating people from all different walks of life. And my philosophy about recovery when I would teach, Martin, is, you're not only recovering from a substance, you're recovering yourself. So my philosophy is we're already liberated, but we've just forgotten. And I don't necessarily call it a spiritual awakening. I call it a remembering, because that feels more in harmony with my heart and with my essence and who I am. Yeah. So that's how I got into the recovery industry. And one of the things I can say I love about working with people in addiction recovery is I always was grateful and refreshed by no matter what they were feeling or how they were doing or what was going on. And they were feeling pretty rotten those first 2 weeks, 3 weeks in detox, is they always showed up in their authentic self. And I always, always appreciated that so much, even though it was really, really challenging at times. I mean, had, people wanting to kill me or look like they wanted to kill me. Why do we have to go and see this lady? Because they were forced to come. But I always gave it my all and always took the challenge on, and learned a lot in the process. I'm very, very grateful for those opportunities to learn and to serve, and make a huge difference in people's lives, and even, help people make the decision to turn left versus going right, where they wouldn't really probably be here on this earth. So,
right. And because you're coming at this from, I know you work within the recovery field, and but not exclusively, and I don't want to work within it exclusively either. Actually, I don't really consider myself an addict anymore. Sometimes I notice addictive qualities, and anytime I do, I'm questioning those things, and I'm like, I want everybody to do this.
Right. You have good self-awareness, and you're right. We're all addicted to something, and you can try and kick that addiction gremlin out of your boat along the little river that you're rowing down, but you're never going to do it. So that little gremlin, you're going to kick him out of the boat and he's going to jump right back in. So your only job is to love that little gremlin and to tell him to sit there and to give him a lollipop and say, I hear you, buddy, but I'm not listening to you. You can kick and scream all you want, but I'm in charge here. I'm rowing the boat. It's the same analogy or practice we can use with any of our shadow parts, right? Or even our self-doubt. We have just all these little gremlins in our personal boat. We're rowing through life. But the more you try and kick them out of the boat, meaning the more you try and deny, the more you try to turn away and pretend it's not there, the more is going to want to jump back in. And when they jump back in, they're going to want to fight with us and jump on our chest and go, but you can't see me. You can't hear me. What's going on? I'm here. But it's really about recognizing them, giving them unconditional love, recognizing that it's there. It's a part of you. It's not going anywhere. And I think that stops people from wrestling with or fighting with that quote unquote demon that they feel they have, this addiction demon, because everybody has addictions. Yep. And of course, as I said, some are life threatening and some have gotten some of us into a lot of trouble and some haven't. But the more that we can embrace the part of ourselves, and therefore we can go out in humanity and embrace others just as they are and recognize that we all have addictions and it's all a part of the face of being human.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And again, right in line with everything that I love about living. I talk about addictions as the things you use to not be aware. And I utilize the term awareness avoidance as right. Like, and anything we're using to avoid being aware of ourselves, that's where the birth of addiction or the birth of just checking out of your own life. And
yeah, that's beautiful. And I would offer an up level on that Please. When we're not in that awareness that you're talking about, awareness avoidance, can you be aware of your awareness avoidance? Because even in that, there's awareness, right? Absolutely. The second you're aware of your awareness avoidance, you're aware. Right. And that's all it is. That's right. The big mystery. That's the big secret. It's like, sometimes we don't have to fix it. We don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. Just be aware, which is what the beautiful tool of meditation allows and gifts us if we're just aware. People think I'm not feeling peaceful. I can't meditate today. So meditate when you're angry, because all meditation is asking you to do is be present with anything that's going on. Well, why can't we sit and meditate when we feel angry? Because we judge it.
Meditation is a word that has gone through some transition over the last couple of decades.
Yeah. Right. Good way of saying it. I like the way, yeah, it's true.
But now it is this ultimate, I meditate. And now people own this, and it's a label, right? And it has all of these things associated with it. And then so I feel like when I get to talk to my clients about I just want you to sit quietly. That's it. I really don't care what you do during that time. If you think, you think. If you stare off into space, you stare off into space. This is how you're going to learn your meditation. And I believe we all actually have our own personal meditation, but we just haven't noticed it yet. We haven't recognized where it is and what we do. But there are those 10 seconds maybe of just boom. there I go, and now I'm back. Right. And then it's like, oh, I gotta fill that time with something. And then they turn on the TV, or they make themselves a coffee, or they do something just to fill that spot where it's like, no, you're being invited to meditate. You're being invited to sit quietly.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, you're right. So many people, especially in our time and our age and our society, where there are so many distractions at our fingertips, right? There's so many distractions. So we feel like, oh, if we have quiet time or dead time, we should jump on Instagram or jump on social media or check the news or see what's going on, or maybe I should post something, or right? The hamster in the wheel is just going round and round and round and round. And there's a gift in sitting practices, meditation practices, quiet time, self-care. Could be going to the gym and sitting in the sauna or the steam, or jumping on the treadmill, even,
Right.
for some people, that's a moving meditation. And as long as you're just being present with yourself, that's a practice, and it's a practice. We don't get it right every day. We may not do it every day, but
there is no right.
Exactly. Yeah, there is no right. And that's the thing, all that expectation of right. Am I doing it right? People say, I can't meditate. They would say, I can't meditate. I can't meditate. I said, well, do you feel better? They said it didn't work. I said, do you feel better after the meditation? They say, yeah. I said, well, then it worked. They're like, oh, that's simple. Did something shift for you? Do you feel lighter? Do you feel freer? Yes. Okay, then it worked. So I guess you did it right. There's just so much mental expectation around it.
When you so how long would you say has this awareness been with you?
I went through my spiritual remembering about 10 years ago, so only 10 years.
Okay.
And it's gotten deeper and more expansive and more knowing and less knowing all at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful way of putting it, because when I was an addict and when I was in active addiction, I knew everything. Like,
of course, because you're really, really, really healthfully placed inside your ego.
Right. And so the further and further away I get from all of these things that cause me to want to know, the more I know I don't know what's going on, and the more I'm open to that. Can you speak to that and your experience of that?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to add something. There's this notion on the spiritual path right now of transcending the ego and killing the ego, and I completely disagree with it. Completely.
I'm on board with that.
We need the ego, right? The positive ego stops us from stepping out in front of a bus and getting killed, as my friend always says. And the negative ego is there to teach us, and sometimes protect us and defend us from things that are just old defense mechanisms and responses to childhood traumas and beliefs and things that we've picked up over time from our parents, our upbringing, our culture, our society, our commercials, our billboards, all of these things. So what we awaken out of is the ego when we climb up the mountain, as one of my teachers says. And then when we come back down, we embrace the ego from a different place.
Right.
So look at Oprah, for example. I listened to her talk this morning with Brené Brown briefly, and I'm not an Oprah fan, not for any reason. I just grabbed something on YouTube, whatever pops up in my YouTube field. I always think the universe wants me to watch that. So I watched a 20-minute video of Brené Brown and Oprah this morning, and Oprah mentioned, transcending the ego and not having an ego. And I wanted to reach through the camera and said, but you have an ego and it's okay because you're sitting here talking about it. And that's your ego talking about your ego.
Right.
Right.
And you're okay. Oprah. Bitch, you got some ego.
Yeah, you have to have an ego. Otherwise you wouldn't be who you are. So, it's all in good fun. There's no judgment.
Absolutely.
Just awareness and observations about there's this, kill the ego. But also when you're on the path of recovery, and especially if you're recovering from substance abuse, we must, I believe it's imperative and important, necessary step on the journey, where we awaken to, I have all these defense mechanisms and patterns and behaviors and personality, which is the ego, that's been tripping me up and getting me in the way and, making me make these bad decisions and these bad choices. So as soon as we recognize that, it gives us a framework, and then you can work at breaking that down and chiseling away all those defense mechanisms and patterns of the personality and the ego, move beyond it, awaken to it, transcend it, and then find and embrace the beautiful part of your ego that we all need and have, and stops us from getting hit by a bus every day on the street.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. I believe we are all one, but we are also made up of two things, right? I always look at like we are 100% spiritual and 100% body. We have to be able to recognize and balance both of those together.
So much of our trauma is held in our bodies. And when I went through a lot of trauma when I was little, a lot of sexual abuse and physical abuse. And what I learned along my journey is we did, therapists call it disassociation. In my world, I call it soul fragmentation. So we separate and leave our bodies because there's so much trauma in our bodies, especially as children. We can't handle it. And animals do this. They'll leave their bodies when they go through trauma, and that's how they're able to survive out in the wild and repeat attacks over and over and over again. But for us as humans, it creates a little bit of a problem because we disassociate, we leave our bodies. And then part of the awakening or remembering or healing journey is to, we're hanging out in ethers, maybe hanging by a few cords connected to our body because there's so much trauma. So my 10 years of my journey was coming back into my body, being present with my body, working with my body, listening to my body, loving my body, healing my body, because that's where all the trauma lives, is in the cellular tissue of the body. And that's why body work, somatic work, working out, exercise, loving on your body, adoring your body, treating your body well is so, so, so important. Such an important part of the healing journey. I remember having a class of women, and for some reason, for a couple of weeks in a row, a lot of women showed up with a lot of track marks on their arms, and they carried so much shame. And so we spent a lot of time. I said, just put your hand on your arm and maybe apologize to your body and say, I'm so sorry I treated you so badly. I didn't know what I was doing. I was in so much pain. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me? And it was very, very healing for them because of that disassociation. It's the intention of treating your body well and just recognizing, hey, I have a body and today I'm going to treat you a little bit better. So you know what my spiritual practice is today? Sometimes this is the truth. This is true for me. Sometimes my spiritual practice of the day is drinking enough water. That's it. Or getting 3 meals in and 2 snacks.
Yeah.
That are balanced meals. Like sometimes that's just it. That's just it for me.
That is the core of treat yourself, right? Like the idea that treat yourself should be buy something, drink alcohol, do these things to like, that's not treating yourself.
No, it's not.
And I love this idea of just like, hey, you hurt yourself here yesterday. Offer it some forgiveness.
Yeah, it's just how can we up level every single day? Something really, really tiny. It doesn't have to be that much. We're trying to do too much, too soon, too fast. And, progress, not perfection. Like I did something personal in my life, which was filled my calendar with bells and whistles and dings and chimes to remind myself to do all these things at a certain time. As you and I were talking before about, wake times and morning routines. And I got off to a slow start a couple of weeks ago, and I was fine tuning, reorganizing everything. And I just reminded myself, hey, you may not be doing it on the hour, but at least you're doing it. There's a flow to the day and you're doing it. Maybe an hour behind schedule the whole day, but at least I've done it all. And then the next week I was half an hour behind schedule. And then, this week last week I'm more on schedule. So It's progress, not perfection, as we say, but that goes across the board in life, whether you're drinking 6 ounces more of water today than you did yesterday. It's all perfect. And you may forget tomorrow, and then the next day you practice again.
That's right. So now you're coming back from trauma, and you're recovering from a number of things on your own. When you were in the midst of this idea of recovering from, what were some things that early on, before these past 10 years of you thinking clearly, or you kind of understanding things as they are, what were some things that maybe you experienced that you didn't ever think were going to change about you?
Beautiful question. Thank you. And my intuitive answer to that is the feeling of feeling damaged.
Hmm.
I remember being in my 20s, being at University in Montreal, walking into a bookstore on a weekend. They have the top selling books on display. I think it was the Barnes and Noble store, or maybe Chapters. We have Chapters in Canada. And I grew up there, for those of you that don't know that. And there was a book there titled Damaged, and I grabbed it. And I realized years later, the reason I chose that book and bought that book and brought it home is because that's how I felt on the inside. But I had no idea, because I didn't know, all my childhood abuse was completely repressed
Right.
until my 30s. I had no idea. So I always had this feeling inside of being damaged, of being of low value. I had low self-worth. I had low self-esteem. I was insecure. I was shy. I didn't know self-love at all. I knew love, but I didn't know self-love. I loved my childhood pets, my little friends I had, my family. I loved nature, but I didn't know self-love. And I certainly didn't know how to climb out of that hole of feeling damaged. But I had a profound healing experience in my early 30s. And my best way of describing it is when I realized all this abuse happened to me in my childhood. It felt like all of these dominoes in my life just stood up. And all of a sudden, Rachel made sense.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all those feelings inside me made complete sense. It explained everything. And it was the most horrific and the most magical moment all at the same time.
Yeah.
It was so liberating and so damaging all at the same time. Because now I had something to work with. And this was like, holy shit, this is a lot.
Yeah.
And then, at the same time, I made sense. How I knew myself on the inside and all these things all of a sudden just made sense. All these dominoes just stood up.
Yeah.
It was remarkable.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And do you still experience like remnants of that damaged idea that you're able to continue digging into?
That's a great question. It's actually perfect timing, because I just went through an experience in a relationship where my feelings of self-worth and self-value were very, very challenged. And it didn't take me too long and it was kind of sneaky, because when you're in close relationship with somebody, you don't always see things clearly. But I was able to realize, oh, I'm being tested again to see, how much have I healed this? And I realized pretty quickly that I'm good. I've got the lesson. I don't need to do this again. So I transitioned out of that experience in that relationship with a lot of love, gratitude, a little bit of hurt, but I'm healing. And the other thing that's remarkable is how quickly that healing is happening. And I believe that's because of all of the inner work and the self-love that I do have, and coming from a place of non-judgment, and kind of as best I can, having a sense of humor about it, like, oh, thanks universe for testing me again. I got it. I got the lesson. I don't need to create this again. I don't need to get the lesson again, because I get it. I get it now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's beautiful. And that's so important for my audience to understand that, it's not a destination. And we will be tested and in different ways.
Right. And it's same place, different face. Right.
Yeah.
So the scenario, the dynamic, the feelings are the same with just different characters.
Yeah.
And the second you start to realize, oh, this feels familiar. I think I've done this before. That's when you stop and realize that, yes, the universe is testing you and checking on you to see how you're doing with your self-worth, your self-value, your self-love. Did you get the lesson last time? Because it really is same place, different face.
Yeah.
Over and over and over until we get the lesson.
Right. And that lesson it's not singular, right? It is deep. I talk about a thing where I talk about this, and it was presented to me in this way, where it's like pre-karmic buffet. Before we're born, we get a plate, and we get to choose all of these like karmic things we have to deal with, responsibility or relationship or this or that or whatever. And the problem with the the problem with buffets is they're all you can eat. So you have this big plate and you go back to your seat, and then here you are born, and like this is what you have to work through in your life. And it is a gift to work through that, because as we work through it, we recover ourselves and we get to see how magical we and life are together.
Yes. And one of the things you'll know if you're, the sort of litmus test as to how well you're doing is how quickly you recover from it.
Right.
So even though, my wing is a little bit injured here and I've lost a few feathers, my recovery has been so quick and so full of grace. And that is a testament to, for me, between my higher power, how much work I have done and how much I fall into the arms of grace through a time of challenge. And if I can also add, Martin, your idea of the karmic buffet, I love that. And it's true. My visual is we have this little suitcase of karma that we bring from life to life. And then to add another layer to it, because there are always layers. And, I believe we only know 10% of really the great mystery of spirit and how this matrix all works anyway. But we also take vows when we come in on a karmic level, on a soul level. We also take vows when we come into our lifetime. And so I believe that consciousness is changing so much right now that's why there's a psychic and a healer on every street corner, because we are here to release our karma. I believe that consciousness is changing and we're moving into a state of not living with karmic debt ananymore, either positive or negative. Because it's just our souls are exhausted from carrying it.
Yeah.
These are the insights that I get in my meditations, is that we're exhausted from carrying it and we're here to clear it, just to be done to create heaven on earth. And that's what that is. So we don't have any karmic debt we're carrying with us anymore. We're clearing all the vows. We're clearing all the past life traumas that we carry with us. I believe personally in past lives. Do I know for sure? No, but I've had enough experience.
I do past life portraiture. So
that's right. Yeah, you do.
So I'm all like, not our audience might, but whatever. Like they can catch up or not. Like we don't ask you to believe anything. We can just
right. And I've taken people through past life healing meditations, and it's amazing and profound things that can come up for healing. So we'll carry something with us. We carry, a weed, let's say, from a past life karmic debt with us in this life, and it can it will grow a field of weeds in this life. And you work so hard if you're working with, traditional therapy or counseling or all these different healing modalities to try and fix a relationship or heal a relationship in your life. And you can't, we have to sometimes go back and check our karmic suitcase and see what we're carrying with us, or what vows, or where there are hooks, cords, and ties to other people, or soul contracts, and our past soul contracts we have with people. But it's time for them to be complete, because, if there's abuse going on, no more soul contract, no matter who or what it is, for example. And that's something we're, awakening to more in this lifetime as well.
So you've been working with people with an addiction, and you say that everybody has addiction. How do you define addiction?
I would define addiction as any behavior or pattern that adversely affects or takes you away from loving yourself or loving those around you.
And I agree with that definition really strongly.
So the deeper definition of addiction is a lack of connection.
Yeah. And
in my world, that means lack of spiritual connection.
Right.
It's a spiritual disease. Because if we all remembered and knew that we're from source, or the love of the light, or God, or nature, however you want to define the universe, energies, the all one, if we actually knew that and felt it and embodied it, we wouldn't need to put substances into our bodies or otherwise to numb out. Because it's emotional pain management. That's really what addiction is. It's an emotional pain management.
That's beautiful. No, that is exactly.
You feel that, right? As I say it, it's pretty.
There is so much in that, and no, that's good.
Yeah, I can just sit with that. I'm feeling it too. Addiction is emotional pain management. So. Again, our emotions, there's so much shame and stigma around our emotions, right? Especially for men. Don't cry. Men don't cry, boys don't cry, girls cry, right? In our culture, in our society. And of course, it's a lot worse in other countries, as we know. But we're not taught to be okay with our feelings. So to me, it really doesn't make sense because God made us, whoever, God in my world made us to be human. And to be human means we get to be human. What does that mean? We get to feel what it means to be human. What does that mean? We get to feel all of the human feelings: anger, sadness, shame, blame, disgust, hatred.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client whose 10-year-old son went into his school counselor's office and said, I want to commit suicide and I have a plan. And when she told me this, she said, will you work with him? I said, I can, but, I'd rather work with you and we can just, I can intuit what's going on. So she and the dad were divorced, and the dad displays narcissistic traits. And the 10-year-old son goes to dad's house and has very, very conflicting feelings about his dad, right? Because of the way the dad treats him. I love my dad because he's my dad, and I hate my dad because of the way he treats me. So I said to the mom, I said, okay, so how about we just help him find balance in feeling I love my dad and I hate my dad. Because that's where his struggle comes from. There's such cognitive dissonance inside him with his emotions. He couldn't figure out how these two feelings could coexist. I explained to her in the spiritual teachings of non-duality, two sides of the same coin. Love and hate is two sides of the same coin. That's why we can love someone with a passion and hate them with a passion.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're just like, rah.
Absolutely.
But we judge it. Doesn't mean you're going to go out and kill the person. I mean, some people do, heaven forbid. But, it's a feeling. And if you're just present with the feeling of, I want to scratch that person's eyes out today, just let yourself feel the feeling and honor the feeling that you're having. Because until you do, you cannot transcend out of it. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we go into those deep, dark, murky places and all those negative feelings or unsavory emotions that we have and that we judge, the more we fight them, the more they're going to climb back in the boat. So she had this conversation with her 10-year-old son, she told me, and he immediately calmed down and said to her, Mom, thanks. That helps me so much because it's true. I love dad and I hate dad.
Mm-hmm.
Just him expressing his emotions and his feelings, which of course he couldn't ever say to his dad. So again, also having a safe, non-judgmental space for this young boy at age 10,
Right.
who lives in Southern California, to manage and navigate his emotions without any judgment. Because the second we judge someone else's feelings or their emotional experience, they're going to shut down and it goes inward. And the problem is when we're little and we go through trauma, there's no adult in our field, physical or energetic field, who is there to say, I understand you're hurting. I understand you're feeling sad, you're upset, you're angry. Maybe you have a physical injury from your trauma or your abuse. How can I help you? What do you need? What can I give you? So many of us don't have that. That's why we disassociate.
Right.
And all those feelings come back to haunt us. They're like the barking dogs in the basement, right? They get louder and louder as we get older, especially around 40 something, midlife crisis age, right? Or in our 20s, where a lot of people fall into addiction because addiction becomes emotional pain management. And if you don't have a healthy environment or people around you to support you with what you're feeling, there's no one there to honor. So the best thing we can do is to honor our own feelings. That's like the number one medicine. If I could ask anybody and everybody to give themselves, is just give yourself your heart so that you can honor your own feelings, no matter what they are, no matter when they come up, no matter what time of day it is.
We live within contradiction. And it's this contradiction between this love and hate, good and bad, right and wrong, that we really, that's living as a human, right? Like understanding the opposites and understanding the extremes and understanding where balance is between all of these.
Right. And you just said something really beautiful, Martin, about the right and wrong. I just wrote a newsletter about this a couple of weeks ago, that there's so much judgment around right and wrong. And what I like to offer people is, we need judgment for discernment, right? Judgment calls. We need judgment. It's a part of being human. Let's not judge the judgment, but there's a time and a place for it. So judgment as to whether across the street or not when the bus is coming, or, judging attending an event or walking into an experience that may be wrong for you.
Right.
For you. So it's okay to have judgments of something being right or wrong for you.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not right or wrong, this person over here doing this thing, but that's just wrong for me. So I'm going to remove myself.
Yeah. And it's wrong for me at the moment.
Yes, exactly.
I can make this decision today because it is right for me today. I am making this decision because this is where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think for me, working in the space where I was working, where I would only see people 2 or 3 weeks in a row, once a week. So I'd maybe only see them 2 or 3 times, and I would never see them again. Right. I mean, thousands and thousands of people I was able to, had the privilege and honor of working with, but I would see them 2 or 3 times and never, ever, ever see them again. And sometimes people would stay in the, that part of the program for the detox phase for 4 or 5 weeks, which was unusual. And I'd say, okay, you're here. You haven't moved on to the next level of care. What's going on? Let's work on this so we get you, sort of on to the next phase. But I think for me, and one of the reasons I kind of burned myself out is because I gave so much to wanting people to see themselves as I was seeing them. I was determined to show them the divine reflection of themselves that they couldn't see or feel for themselves, because I knew, based on their stories that they shared, they didn't have a loving feminine presence in their life. Let's say they didn't have a mother or a sister or an aunt or a grandmother. So I would, sort of take on that role for them. And again, just be a reflection of the divinity that they don't see in themselves yet. And, hopefully by the end of the 3rd class, they would. And just working really hard to massage them and to find that, I've been gifted with reading the unconscious mind. So helping go in and see, okay, what's this mechanism? The brain is like a computer. We're programmed with all this junky software. Mm-hmm. It's time to defrag. We're going to defrag and install some new software. And we know, which is what affirmations are all about. That's one way of doing it. There's other ways of doing it too, but let's go in and really see what the hook is in your brain that's stopping you from living your best life. Because that's really what it is. And then we also we hook ourselves energetically. So in our energy bodies and our unconscious mind, it's hard to explain because I see the unseen, but we hook ourselves mentally, spiritually, energetically. And, you can't, a regular Joe Smith can't see that for himself unless you work with somebody who, can see these things. As I say, we all have our blind spots. I can't see my hands right now. And so working with somebody who can help you bring those blind spots into vision out, bringing the shadows into the light so they don't have to be the shadows anymore. And you learn how to serve yourself better, which then the end result is we serve community better.
Yeah. Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing so much with me and us. We could talk about this for a long, long time. This is just keep going. But what I'm really glad that we not only talked a little bit about how you got here, but so much of your message and so much of what has brought you here, because we all have so much to offer, and your experience and the work that you're doing and the message that you have is so important, and which is why I'm really happy to know that my message is resonating with yours, because again, it's kismet. So I'm really excited that we connected and that I get to spread your message further. So I'm happy to be able to do that. So thank you. Yes.
My pleasure. Thank you for all the work that you do in the recovery community and continuing to serve and to be a light and to keep those channels open to help more and more and more people. And hopefully we can crush the addiction issues so that people can start to see and realize their pure potential and remember where they came from and remember who they are and know that they are complete masters of themselves if they choose to be. And these days there are so many wonderful, amazing, beautiful tools because of technology. There are so many amazing free things. I mean, as long as you have a smartphone or a computer, or even if not, just go to your library and jump on YouTube. There's so many amazing free things these days to help people. So
yeah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
You can contact Rachel through Recovery by Rachel on either Facebook or Instagram, or you can just go to her website, recoverybyrachel.com. If you visit the link in the description of this episode and take her recovery assessment, you'll receive her Awakening the Spirit guided meditation. Rachel is also hosting a live group coaching and meditation event for inner child recovery on August 6, 2019. The first 5 people to fill out her recovery assessment will receive a free promo code for that event. All the links mentioned in this podcast can be found in the description of this episode. I want to thank you again for listening to the Recover Yourself podcast. I'm your host, MartinJon, and as we all know, we're doing this together. So if you're interested in supporting this podcast, please see the links below for donations or to be a regular supporter. Please rate this podcast on your favorite podcast app and consider writing a review or leaving me a voice message on Anchor. If you're someone with long-term recovery, feel free to contact me through Instagram at MartinJon or my website, martinjon.com. Until next time, keep recovering yourself.